Good morning and welcome to Breaking Burnout for Nurses podcast. Thank you for coming again, Shelby, to let us know a little bit about how you prevent nurse burnout. So, Shelby was on my show a little bit ago, not too long ago, and she talked about a little free library that she brought to our nurses break room where we work. And so now today we're going to ask her, what are your top 3 priorities for nurse burnout prevention?
My top 3 priorities for preventing burnout would be sleep, prioritizing my family and friends, and also reading.
All right. Very important. Okay. Shameless plug here, but all 3 of those I do mention in my book. My book that you can get on my website at breakingburnout.com. But back to you, Shelby. All right. So tell us how you prioritize your sleep.
So it's been an evolution throughout my career on how I've prioritized sleep. When I first started nursing, I worked evenings and then I worked night shift. So you really have to get creative on ways to get your sleep when you're working on nights, because throws your whole body clock off. So, little things I did were blackout curtains for during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd set alarms, try to make the house as quiet as possible, that kind of thing. And something I just started doing recently, now I work day shift, so it's a little easier to stay on a schedule and prioritize your sleep. It's something I started doing recently that's really helped a lot is I put my cell phone, I charge it outside my bedroom. So I can't, scroll before bed. No, none of that. I don't read on my phone before bed. And then it, helps me prioritize reading, which really helps me, get grounded and wind down and get ready for a good night's sleep.
I love that idea of putting your phone outside your room because, well, like you said, the temptation of scrolling, it's so easy to just pick it up and just, let me just check one more time what's on what's on Facebook. Or, but also I think it's that blue light that it's emitted from our laptops and televisions too, and our phones is detrimental to us. It kind of makes it harder to go to sleep in the first place. So keeping that out of as far away as possible while you're trying to sleep is a great idea.
Yeah, it gives you a good wind down time.
Do you go to sleep at a certain time? Did you say?
I typically try to go to sleep at the same time every night. It's typically around 9 or 10 o'clock. My baby is down at that point, not a baby anymore, but yes, my baby is down at that point. And I try to stay on a schedule to promote healthy sleep patterns.
Now, when you're on night shift, that it's a little bit harder, like you said. Did you work your 12-hour shifts, right?
I did. Mm-hmm.
And then did you work in a row, like nights in a row, or how did you do your schedule?
Yeah, when I was doing nights, I typically liked to do it in a row. For me, that was the easiest way to prioritize sleep because I wouldn't have to flip-flop in between shifts. So it was easiest for me to work 3 nights in a row, and that way I would just try to sleep during the day and come back to work the next night. And then on my last night, I would try not to sleep too long during the day to flip back so that I could have a life and be with people during the day.
So were you were able to sleep, like how many hours did you sleep during the day then on those night shift nights?
Yeah, I usually try to sleep about 6 hours or so, 6 or 7 hours during the day. It was harder during the day, it was noisier during the day, the lights out during the day, so it was harder to flip-flop. People coming in and out of your house, so it was harder to get that full. Now it's much easier to get a solid 7 or 8 hours, but it's not as easy on night shift.
Yes, I've heard recently that one lady was telling me that she finally, after years and years of struggling with sleeping, she uses an eye mask to
Hmm.
cover her eyes, even though she has a blackout curtain. She uses
Hmm.
an eye mask, and then she wears little ear plugs to drown out the sound a little bit more,
Yes.
and that really helps her too. So
Yeah.
we all have our little tricks that we learn throughout the years, but they make such a big difference on how you feel the next day, especially when you're working night shift. I
Hmm.
think most of us start out on night shift because you're a low man on the totem pole, right? And you have to
Hmm.
figure out how to do that. And then when we're so happy to get to day shift and get some, at least a little bit more regular sleep patterns, yay.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, and then prioritizing family and friends. How do you do that? Because you're a
So
busy person.
I am. So it's been a whole new world to prioritize work-life balance and then after becoming a mom. And I found
Yes.
like the best thing that works for me is to plan. I plan. I plan like a year ahead of time.
Mm,
So, I get my schedule out. I talk to my friends. I plan things months in advance and I
mhm,
just put it on the schedule. For me, I find it easier if I already have something on the schedule planned ahead of time. It's easier
mhm,
to do than when it's more spontaneous. I can get a babysitter, or even if it's something I'm planning with my daughter, then it has something that she can look forward to.
mhm,
So trying to plan ahead is and have a calendar. I still use old fashioned paper calendar that's on my
mhm.
kitchen, and my husband can write on it, and my daughter can see it, and so that way we have things to look forward to.
And that's how you plan to do this podcast with me.
Exactly, exactly.
You put me
Yep,
in your
got to get it on the
calendar.
calendar.
You fit me into your
Yeah.
schedule. Yes, so I agree. I like to write it down, and actually, I mean, I do have it in my phone, like our work schedule or things like that, so I can take a
Mhm.
quick glance at what I'm doing. But I like the old-fashioned paper calendar that I can lay everything out and write little notes and things like that to kind of make sure
Yeah.
that you're able to fit your family and friends in. Hey,
Hmm.
how about prioritizing date night with your husband? Do you get to do that?
Oh, that's a tricky one. That's something I'm still working on, but it's been an evolution. Our goal, because we've talked about it in the past, would be to get at least one in a month. This year has been tricky, hasn't quite happened, but we try to make it. We try to make it happen. And again, that's all about planning ahead and trying
Mhm.
to, get care help that night or whatever, and try to get date nights on the schedule because it's important. And that's
It's very
prioritizing your
important. Mhm. I mean,
marriage
it
and.
seems that's a very important one. And just the fact that you're talking about planning it is kind of part of the plan, right? I mean, you have to communicate about, your lives are so crazy around that. So just the fact
Mhm.
that you're talking about it is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
now,
communication.
how about connecting back with your friends and things like that? Family is a little bit easier because they're right there and close by, but sometimes, reconnecting with your girlfriends or something, it's a little harder to do. Does that go on your calendar too as a part of the
It
plan?
does. It does. Part of the evolution, I think, of work-life balance and having a small child, like you just have to plan ahead. And luckily, I have, girlfriends that are more than willing to, plan plan far in advance. It helps them out too. So we try to put it on the calendar and get there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. It's very hard because everybody is busy these days. And so it's like fitting a puzzle together and trying to fit all the pieces so everybody can get together.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I know you love reading because you were sharing with us in the previous episode about your little little free library.
Mhm.
So I know you love reading. So I know that's you like to prioritize that. And now, when was a good time for you to do some reading? Because you're busy. I know you're so busy with your work, your family, your little baby, or not. She's not little, but she is little to me.
Yeah, she's still small. Yeah, not a baby anymore, but still small. Yeah. Reading is great because you know what? You can take a book with you anywhere you go. That's what is so awesome about reading is, you know, you can always throw a book in your purse. So I can, you know, if I'm waiting to pick her up from school, you know, in line, I can read a few pages. I like to read before bed. It's a good way to, you know, get grounded and kind of get ready for bed. So I have some time there. Or if you're waiting for a doctor's appointment, you can whip out your book and read then. There's lots of moments. You'll notice another thing, like you'll notice anytime like you can pull out your phone, I think, you know what, I'd rather pull out my book.
I love that.
Because it's a way to be present and get grounded. And I think that's what I love so much about reading is that you can be present more with reading and get immersed in a story or history or it just is a good way to get grounded.
So like at night when you're, instead of scrolling before you go to bed, you know, you put your phone away in the other room and you could read a chapter in your book or two. It's a nice way to have a quiet evening.
Yeah. And I learned so much through books. You know, I think it gives you a lot of empathy. You get to see other characters' points of view, learn a lot about history, and just relationships and life in general.
So what kind of books do you like? Fiction or nonfiction? What kind of books do you enjoy?
A little bit of everything. I think probably my top favorites would be like historical fiction.
Okay.
I like romance. I like thrillers, like biographies or memoirs. It's been a really neat way to, you know, get to know, you know, some people in history or some actors or comedians. I recently read a book about a comedian and that was great. So it's just endless, you know, endless.
And then, you know, I talk to people about reading and say, oh, I'm not really a reader. Well, but there are audiobooks, so you can listen to a book on audio. So yes, I guess my excuse is over.
Yeah, it's great. So I do both. I read physical books and I do audio. And audio is great because when you're driving, you can, you know, to and from appointments, to and from work, you can listen to an audiobook and you can, you know, get it in that way. And even my daughter has kind of showed an interest and I can hear her listening along to some of the things that I do. So it's kind of exciting because as she gets older, there's worlds and books that I can't wait to introduce her to.
All right, Shelby, thank you so much for sharing your top 3 burnout survival tactics. And for you out there, thank you for listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. Okay, I have a favor to ask everybody, and Shelby too. I think I have 17 followers on YouTube, and I don't know how many listeners I have on the podcast, like Spotify or whatever you're listening on, but please share, please subscribe, follow, like, and connect with me. Share with as many people as you can, nurses who want to fight burnout or prevent burnout, or share with anyone who you know could use this information to help them with their burnout problems. It's such a big epidemic and we all could use help with that. So please share with them about the Breaking Burnout for Nurses podcast, and also find out more information on www.breakingburnout.com. And we'll see you next Monday at 10 o'clock. Bye. Thank you, Shelby.